Three American swimmers being kept in Brazil following allegations they were robbed. Authorities have told ABC of a video showing a U.S. swimmer breaking down a gas station restroom door and fighting a security guard. Ryan LOCHTE, the most high-profile victim, in Sunday morning's alleged robbery, acknowledged Wednesday that he had the other swimmers were in a taxi at a gas station when armed men posing as police officers robbed them. The reports of a new video come after U.S. swimmers Jack Conger and Gunnar Bentz were stopped from leaving on a flight Wednesday night as authorities investigate the alleged robbery. Brazilian authorities said in a statement Thursday that the swimmers were taken off the airplane. Check out the New York Post front page headline today, Watergate. Max Kellerman, What is your latest reaction to this?
Well, first of all, right from the beginning, these reports, every report you read, at least that I read, was talking about skepticism with which these allegations were met. So there was skepticism, at least on the part of the authorities in Brazil, who are understandably sensitive about their reputation right now as it relates to crime and the poverty and the favelas and the fact that it's been, a lot of the reports that have come out.
Favelas,
like the slums in Brazil,
where they literally covered with sheets.
Yeah. So it's called favelas?
Yeah, favelas.
Yes.
Got it. So they're on the one hand, the Olympic Games and the Olympic Village and all this stuff, very nice and first world. And then over here, it looks like developing world in desperate circumstances. And I'm sure that Brazil is embarrassed by this and sensitive to the idea that it would be the inequality and the fact that it might be unsafe for the athletes, etc. So, but right away you heard skepticism associated with the claim. Now, LOCHTE first reports it on Instagram. Let's presume for a second that it's a lie. Let's just assume that that's true. There's reason to be skeptical, and he made it up because he wants to cover up some kind of personal behavior that he doesn't want to be known, or he's in some other kind of situation that he doesn't want to be made public. That's not a crime. You can claim something. You can invent a bad guy who stuck you up and took your money. That's not a crime. That's fine. You can enter and leave any country you want as an American citizen. You should be able to anyway. Because you made something, that's fine. But once you give statements to an official, to a law enforcement official, which apparently happened because this is according to police now in Brazil, now you're in trouble. Now, if you gave false testimony, now you're in trouble. Now, the judge who said, not so fast, don't get on the plane, who gave permission for law enforcement to detain them, sees inconsistencies in a couple of the swimmers' testimony. Okay, I mean, I guess you can bring them in to talk to them more if they've given these statements to officials, Stephen A., but memory is imperfect, and you can ask two different people about an incident that did take place, and there may be some inconsistencies, and even someone, when asked to clarify, may say, oh, the gun was pointed at my head. No, it wasn't actually. It was just pointed at me. Those things can change. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. But I understand, I guess the upshot is I understand why Brazilian officials would be very sensitive to this issue. And I understand if you give a statement to law enforcement and they have reason to believe it's a false statement, they may want to talk to you some more. But as an American citizen, the fact that some of our athletes go to another country to compete, and based on their claim, whether true or not, that they were stuck up, they can be detained, I don't like it. I just don't like it.
I don't like it either. I'm in no position to wax eloquently about this because I haven't watched that much of the Olympics. I have been of the mindset, just like you are about the name Redskins, I am about the Olympians being there in attendance. I don't like it. There's been so many things that were reported prior to folks arriving there. I've spoken to several journalists who have been there who cannot wait to get back to the States. My God, some of the things that they have been subjected to. Having said all of that, here's where it gets a bit tricky. Like you said, once you give a statement to the authorities, then all of a sudden all bets are off. What I would modify that statement with is by saying this. That would be in the United States of America. Who the hell knows what it is in Brazil? Obviously, there were security issues. We had security issues. We had corrupt politicians. We've got a country like Brazil that shares its borders with 10 different other countries. I mean, you've got all of those issues going on. You've got water, the equivalent of raw sewage, but you want to stick out your chest and act like you're the paragons of virtue. How dare anybody accuse us of wrongdoing, to accuse somebody of feigning to be cops to rob somebody in the street as if it is beyond the realm of comprehension. I don't like this at all. I think government intervention is necessary in terms of, excuse me, let those athletes go, give them back their passport, let them get on a plane and get the hell back to the United States of America. They didn't harm anybody. They didn't rob anybody. Chances are they were robbed, and even if they weren't, what's the mistake? That you lied about being robbed? I mean, because they didn't say police officers robbed us. They said people faking themselves or feigning themselves as police officers robbed us. So that's no indictment against law enforcement officials in Brazil. Now, had you said you had been robbed by the police, then that is a different matter entirely, because now you're questioning law enforcement officials, and that's a problem. But if you're saying people faked being police officers, and then we found out they were fake, and obviously they weren't police officers, but we got robbed, I'm sorry, not that I'm condoning somebody lying, condoning somebody making up a story or anything like that, because that would be wrong. The flip side, however, is that, again, you saying that you were robbed, but you're not putting it on police officers. What is their problem? Let the American citizens go. Let them come back home. And if I'm the United States of America, I'm calling the embassy there and I'm saying, excuse me, let them come home. Who did they harm? Who did they bother? You're trying to use them for public relations. We're not going to have it.
That's the key. The fact that Brazil is facing a PR problem, which is largely justified because of the conditions right now, and the question as to whether they should even hold the Olympics, that's not something made up. Now, I understand where they're sensitive because they're like, look, we're already fighting all of this. And we don't need made-up allegations on top of it. I'm very sorry if you got your feelings hurt in a kind of, even if it was a made-up situation and now you have bad PR. Boy, you better have a damn good reason to detain, even for a moment, American citizens who are trying to go home, period.
You're lucky they're there. Because, again, I'm going to repeat this again.
It's scary.
Ladies and gentlemen, they shared their borders with 10 different countries at a time when Al-Qaeda exists, ISIS exists, etc. You've got water, the equivalent of raw sewage, and you got events going on up in there. It looks nasty some of the time. You know, the reports over there have been disastrous. Don't
forget Zika.
The Zika virus, okay? You know, you got people, I mean, they distributed millions of condoms, for crying out loud, all right? You got all of this going on. It's just the truth. I'm not being X-rated here. It's a fact. So the point that I'm trying to make is, all of that into consideration, we shouldn't even be there. I hate the fact that any Olympian is over in Brazil. The event should have never been there.
And by the way, while we're at it, Qatar should not ever host the World Cup. I mean, like, not any time in the near future. It's the same thing. Like, why are these events in certain places where they shouldn't be?
They shouldn't
be.
So
what you guys are telling me is you're feeling pretty good about being in Bristol, Connecticut today.
Yeah, compared to Brazil?
Yeah, you
Hell
are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hell yeah.
When we come back, we stay in the States and go back to the NFL. Christian McCaffrey, a white running back, Deshaun Watson, a black quarterback, both speak out on the stereotypes they face. And we'll tell you what this says about society when we return. So we have some breaking news on the subject we were just discussing in the prior segment here, gentlemen. A Brazilian police official is telling the Associated Press that American swimmer Ryan Lochte fabricated a story about being robbed at gunpoint in Rio de Janeiro. Max, your reaction to that?
Well, I mean, if he's coming clean now, that's good. Because as I said in the previous segment, even if let's assume for a second he's fabricating something. Just because Brazil is facing a PR problem with these Olympics doesn't mean that he's not allowed to lie about made-up bad guys, you know, on his Instagram. That's fine. The problem is when you give statements to officials, police officials, law enforcement officials, then they have a reason to detain you, even though it still doesn't sit well with me, but okay, they did win this PR battle. He's come clean. And by the way, Stephen A., even if they started to tell a lie, they didn't want to get into trouble, and then they told a lie to officials and maybe got themselves in more trouble, the sooner they come clean, the better. So it's good that it's resolved.
Well, I have nothing to add to what you said, because you're right on the money, with the exception of this. Lochte should be ashamed of himself, if indeed he did lie. You went to the Olympic to represent your country. You're supposed to, if you're representing your country, you're supposed to be as upstanding as you are. To fabricate a story to cover yourself, it probably ended up being way bigger than you imagined, but you still look like a damn liar, and you have now embarrassed yourself, and that's unfortunate.
You know what else? And I'm glad you brought that up, because you're absolutely right about that. from the other point, I'm taking the pro-America. I just didn't like the fact that American citizens are detained even for a moment in a foreign. However, you're right. Brazil is fighting this PR battle. It's a legitimate one. They have real problems. What they don't need is a fabricated story speaking to some of the concerns that they're having now from a PR point of view. You're right. LOCHTE obviously did the wrong thing.
Want to go to our original story now that we're going to discuss with Christian McCaffrey? Let's get into it.